At this stage in life, time is no longer something to waste. You've spent years following rules you didn't create, carrying responsibilities that weren't yours, and putting yourself second. But now, the question is, was it all worth it? There comes a moment when certain things simply stop making sense. Waiting for approval, holding on to draining relationships, staying silent just to keep the peace. But how much longer will you keep living on someone else's terms? Well, stick till the end to figure that out. There comes a moment when a person realizes they've spent far too much time waiting for approval to live life on their own terms. Maybe that realization comes after years of hesitation, second-guessing, and seeking validation from others. Maybe it happens in an instant, a sudden moment of clarity that makes everything obvious. Whatever the case, the truth is simple. No one is going to give permission to live the way they want. And yet, so many people hesitate, trapped in an invisible prison built from the expectations of others. From childhood, people are taught to be obedient, to follow rules, to avoid making others uncomfortable. They learn that silence is better than confrontation, that blending in is safer than standing out. And as they grow, those lessons sink deeper. Suddenly, they find themselves asking for permission for everything. Permission to pursue a dream, to change paths, to make decisions that should be entirely their own. They wait for approval to love who they want, to take risks, to say no when something doesn't serve them. And before they know it, years slip by and they're still waiting. How long is too long? How many dreams have already been buried because of fear of judgment? Look back and think of all the times a decision was put on hold because of what someone else might say. Maybe there was a desire to travel alone, but the fear of looking foolish held things back. Maybe there was a longing to dress differently, to embrace a style that felt right, but the thought of raised eyebrows kept that wish locked away. Maybe there was an opportunity to move to a new city, start over, pick up an old passion, or simply stop doing things that no longer felt fulfilling, but instead of acting on it, hesitation crept in. And what was that hesitation for? A silent expectation that someone somewhere would finally say, "Yes, you're allowed to do this. Go ahead." But that approval never comes. Instead, life keeps moving forward, and those who were worried about other people's opinions end up watching as everyone else lives their own lives, completely unaware of the sacrifices made for them. The most dangerous thing about this mindset is that it doesn't feel like a trap. It disguises itself as responsibility, as loyalty, as being the right thing to do, but in reality, it's nothing more than a mental cage. The conditioning runs so deep that people begin to doubt their own choices, to seek validation for things that should never need justification. And the worst part, if they don't break free from it now, they never will. Think about this. An old man once dreamed of learning to dance, but his wife laughed at the idea. He let her opinion dictate his decision, so he never pursued it. Now, she's gone, and he's still sitting in the same chair, still watching others move, still convinced it's too late. Or imagine a woman who always wanted to travel, but her children told her it wasn't safe. They said it didn't make sense at her age. They insisted she should stay home, be there for the grandchildren. So, she listened. Now, the grandchildren are grown, living their own lives, and she's still sitting by the same window, watching the days pass, never having seen the world she once dreamed of. These stories aren't tragic because of age. They're tragic because of the invisible chains that held these people back. It wasn't time that stole their dreams, it was fear. It was the opinions of others. It was the deep, ingrained belief that they needed someone else's permission to be free. But here's the truth. No one is going to grant that freedom. No one is going to come forward and say, "Now you're allowed to be happy." The idea that there will be some perfect moment when it all makes sense, when the weight of judgment disappears, is an illusion. Keep waiting for that validation, and life will slip away before anything truly meaningful has been done. And the most ironic part? The very people whose opinions dictated these decisions, the ones who made them hesitate, the ones who kept them in place, will move on. They won't spend their time thinking about what was sacrificed for them. They'll continue living their lives, making their own choices, while those who waited for approval remain trapped in a cage that only ever existed in their minds. The only way out is to stop seeking permission. There is no need to justify desires or explain decisions. If there's something that needs to change, it should change. If something needs to be let go, it should be released. If a new beginning is necessary, it should start immediately. Life isn't going to wait, and if control isn't taken now, it never will be. Taking control also means recognizing when to let go of things that no longer serve a purpose. But this is where many people go wrong. They assume moving forward only means taking new steps, when in reality, it also requires cutting ties with whatever is holding them back. This brings up another difficult truth. Some relationships are already dead, yet people hold on to them out of fear. If there's anything that ages faster than the body, it's a relationship that has long since expired. And yet, so many people continue clinging to connections that no longer bring value, simply because of guilt, obligation, or habit. How often has a person stayed in a toxic relationship just because of shared history? He's my son, I can't distance myself. She's my sister, we have to stay close. He's my husband. We've been together for so many years, I can't just leave now. And with excuse after excuse, they force themselves to keep something alive that has already died. This happens because of the stories people have been told since childhood. They've been taught that family is everything, that marriage must be endured no matter what, that friendships should never be abandoned. But here's something no one likes to say out loud. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some were only meant to be part of the journey, not the entire story. Holding on to something that has already run its course doesn't make a person noble. It makes them stuck. It's like trying to breathe life into a dead flame, hoping it will start burning again. But all it does is keep them trapped in a space that no longer serves them. Letting go isn't betrayal. It isn't selfishness. It's choosing freedom. It's choosing happiness. It's recognizing that life is too short to spend time maintaining relationships that drain instead of nourish. All right, hear me out. Some relationships have an expiration date. Some survive only through unfair sacrifices. Some become burdens that rob peace, draining every last bit of energy and happiness. Stoicism teaches that life is about accepting things as they are, not as they are wished to be. But countless people, especially those who have lived long enough to see the shifting nature of relationships, remain stuck in toxic cycles because they cannot let go of the illusion that someone they loved is still the same person, or worse, that they were ever truly the person they believed them to be. The desperate hope that people will change keeps many trapped. Parents cling to the idea that one day their children will appreciate them. Spouses wait endlessly for lost love to be rekindled. Old friends, once inseparable, drift apart, yet one side waits in vain for things to return to how they used to be. But reality does not work that way. If someone does not respect another today, they will not suddenly wake up tomorrow filled with gratitude. If someone is indifferent now, they will not transform overnight into someone who values and cherishes the relationship. Waiting for that change is a form of self-inflicted torture. What makes it worse is that the time spent clinging to dead relationships is time stolen from something that could actually bring fulfillment. This does not mean every loss must be replaced with another person, but imagine the peace that could be found by simply stopping the exhausting effort to force something that no longer works. There are people who have lived their entire lives without ever experiencing a single day of true freedom because they have been tied to relationships that make them feel small, guilty, or never enough. They have spent decades listening to relentless criticism, shouldering the weight of others' happiness, and absorbing the frustrations of those around them. Is that truly the life anyone wants to continue living? This is not about becoming heartless or cutting people off for minor reasons. It is about recognizing that some relationships drain more than they give, that some people do not add to life but instead take away from it. And if no decision is made to let go, life will become an endless burden of dragging emotional corpses, memories, and expectations of what should have been, but never was. The hardest truth of all is that some of the most toxic relationships are not with distant acquaintances or old friends who have grown apart. They are with the closest people, children, spouses, siblings, the very ones who were supposed to offer unconditional love and support. Society teaches that family should never be abandoned, that love should endure all things. But love without respect is not love. Family without consideration is not family. Companionship without joy is not companionship at all. It is a prison. Holding on to relationships that have long since died is an act of self-betrayal. It is denying the right to live with dignity. It is chaining oneself to the past and refusing to step into a future free from emotional exhaustion. And the cruelest part? While one person clings desperately to the illusion of what once was, the other has already moved on, without a second thought, without a moment of suffering over the loss. Looking back, the realization comes too late. Holding on to dead relationships is not just a waste of time, it is a waste of life. But there is something even worse than that: living in constant fear of what others think. This is where the real shift happens, because without breaking free from this, nothing else truly changes. The fear of other people's opinions is one of the heaviest burdens a person can carry. So much time is spent questioning decisions, wondering if they are the right ones, not based on personal happiness, but on whether they fit into the expectations of others. What will the family say if the house is sold and replaced with something smaller? What will the children think if dating happens later in life? How will others judge if the decision is made to stop taking care of those who never took care of them? And while waiting for permission or approval, life slips away. People become prisoners of expectations that are not even their own, trapped in cages built from the opinions of others. Stoicism makes it simple. Those who live by the opinions of others will never be free. This is where a practical strategy comes in, one that can shift everything in an instant. It is called the last day test. It works like this. Every time a decision is about to be made based on fear of judgment, ask one simple question. If today were the last day of life, would this opinion still matter? If the answer is no, then it is not worth holding back. The only thing that truly matters is personal truth. What feels right, what aligns with self-respect and peace of mind. Imagine a woman in her 70s who has spent her entire life pleasing her family. She has always been available, always said yes without hesitation, always put aside her own desires to avoid conflict. One day, she finally decides she wants to take a solo trip, something just for herself. But immediately, the voices begin. How can you travel alone at your age? What if something happens to you? That kind of thing isn't for someone like you. Fear creeps in. She hesitates. She almost lets go of the idea. But before she surrenders to the pressure, she asks herself, if this were the last day of my life, would I really care what my children think? And in that moment, everything clicks. People will always have something to say. There will always be opinions, judgments, and expectations. But life does not belong to them. The power of this test is that it forces a shift in perspective. It pulls the mind away from immediate fear and into the only moment that truly matters, the present. At the end of life, when looking back, it becomes painfully clear how much time was wasted on things that never really mattered. The worries that seemed overwhelming, the judgments that felt unbearable, all of it fades into insignificance. People forget, people judge and move on. But the one who must live with the consequences of choices, or the lack of them, is the person staring back in the mirror. And this is where most people fail. Even when they manage to stop caring about the opinions of others, they fall into another, even more dangerous trap, becoming everyone else's savior. Once free from the burden of social expectations, a startling realization sets in. Many past decisions weren't made for personal happiness, but to fit into everyone else's world. And that is how so many people, especially those who have spent years taking care of others, fall into an exhausting, inescapable cycle, becoming the lifeline for grown children, siblings, and adult family members who should be standing on their own. It starts with good intentions. Society teaches that love means sacrifice, that parents must always be available, that being a good sibling, aunt, uncle, or grandparent means dropping everything the second someone needs help. The belief is drilled in from childhood. Family comes first, but no one warns about the cost of never putting oneself first. From a young age, the message is clear. Our role in the family is to serve others. We are conditioned to believe that the ultimate expression of love is self-sacrifice. Parents devote themselves to their children's needs, even at the expense of their own well-being. They take on responsibilities that weren't originally theirs, all for the sake of keeping the family unit intact. Over time, this habit of putting others first becomes second nature, and any attempt to break free from it feels like betrayal. The pattern continues, often without pause, because there is no other frame of reference. Those who spend their lives taking care of others have very little time to ask themselves whether they are truly happy, or if they're simply fulfilling a role they were taught to play. It's as if, by helping others, they lose the ability to see their own needs. The idea of putting oneself first starts to feel alien, selfish, even unnatural. But in the end, it's the absence of self-care that breeds resentment, exhaustion, and a deep sense of unfulfillment. For years, sometimes decades, the pattern continues. A parent sacrifices their financial security to bail out an irresponsible adult child. A grandparent takes on the role of raising grandchildren because their own children refuse to step up. A sibling endlessly supports a brother or sister who never made an effort to be independent. And every time it's met with gratitude until the day comes when the answer is no. That is when the accusations begin. The moment personal needs take priority, the narrative shifts. Suddenly, the person who has given everything is called selfish. This dynamic can be incredibly painful because it exposes how deeply ingrained the dependency is. The person who has always been there for others feels guilt, shame, and confusion when they finally assert their own needs. They wonder, why does it feel so wrong to set boundaries? Why is it so difficult to say no when the requests never end? The truth is that those who have been the constant source of support may not even recognize that they've allowed others to take too much. They may feel as though they don't have the right to ask for anything in return. Years of sacrifice have created an environment where their own needs go unrecognized, and when they finally draw the line, they are met with hostility. The love they've given is seen as an unending resource, and suddenly, when they can no longer give, they are accused of abandoning the family or of being self-centered. Because deep down, many people do not see the ones who help them as individuals with their own needs. They see them as a resource, an infinite well of support, money, and time. And the cruelest part? The one being used believes it too. One of the most dangerous beliefs is that saying no is the same as abandonment. Society has conditioned people, especially those who are older, to feel guilt for not rushing to solve problems that were never theirs to begin with. The expectation is clear. Drop everything, even when the person asking for help has never lifted a finger in return. This is how life gets consumed by solving other people's problems, carrying burdens that should not belong to one person, and sacrificing peace to support those who refuse to stand on their own 2 feet. But here is the truth. Helping is not the same as carrying. There is nothing wrong with guiding. There is nothing wrong with supporting, but living someone else's life for them, especially at the cost of personal happiness, is a mistake that comes with a devastating price. The belief that saying no equals abandonment is ingrained deeply in many individuals, particularly in older generations. This is often a result of societal expectations, where sacrifice is equated with love, and the constant giving of oneself becomes a measure of worth. From a young age, many people are taught that their value is tied to their ability to help others, to be there for others, and to give at all costs. Over time, this belief becomes so ingrained that it becomes difficult to even entertain the idea of saying no, even when the request is unreasonable or detrimental to one's well-being. The mere thought of denying help can feel like betrayal, leaving individuals trapped in a cycle of self-sacrifice that leaves them emotionally and physically drained. This conditioning leads to a dangerous pattern. Individuals end up constantly giving, solving problems, and carrying burdens that were never theirs to bear. It's a cycle where the needs of others are prioritized to such an extent that the person doing the giving completely neglects their own needs. They become consumed by the idea that they must always be the problem solver, the helper, the one who is always available. And while helping others is a noble act, it becomes problematic when it comes at the expense of one's own happiness, health, or peace of mind. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you don't help, you'll be seen as selfish, uncaring, or abandoning those who need you. But in reality, saying no is not about abandonment. It's about preserving your own well-being. The problem with this mindset is that it perpetuates the idea that love and support are only valuable if they come at the cost of self-neglect. People who are caught in this trap often feel that their worth is defined by their ability to give, to be endlessly available, and to put others' needs first. But this kind of thinking leads to burnout and resentment. When an individual continuously puts others first, they start to lose sight of themselves. Their own desires, dreams, and goals are sidelined, and their identity becomes entangled with the needs of others. Over time, this can lead to feelings of emptiness, frustration, and a sense of being taken for granted. They begin to feel as though their own needs are irrelevant or unimportant, and that their worth is only validated through their ability to help others. What often happens in these situations is that the person who is constantly giving becomes emotionally and physically drained. They may feel as though they have nothing left to give, yet the demands from others continue to increase. The more they give, the more they are expected to give. This can lead to a sense of resentment because, deep down, the person giving feels that their own needs are being ignored or dismissed. In the most extreme cases, this can result in feelings of burnout, depression, and a complete loss of self-identity. The person who once found joy in helping others may now feel trapped, overwhelmed, and unable to find a way out. The truth is that it is perfectly okay to set boundaries, to say no, and to prioritize one's own well-being. Saying no does not mean you don't care, nor does it mean you are abandoning anyone. It simply means that you recognize your own limitations and that you understand the importance of self-care. Just as you would not expect someone to continuously carry a heavy load without taking breaks, you should not expect yourself to constantly give without allowing time for rest and recharge. Helping others is important, but it should never come at the expense of your own mental, emotional, and physical health. Now look around. How many people have drained their life savings bailing out irresponsible adult children? How many grandparents have sacrificed their own retirement to raise grandchildren because their parents refused to take responsibility? How many people have worked themselves to exhaustion, supporting siblings who never put in effort to be independent? And meanwhile, those same people, the ones being helped, move through life without a second thought, without a care, because they know that someone else will always be there to clean up their mess. Then, one day, reality hits. The well runs dry. The years are gone, the money is gone, the dreams, the energy, the chances to live freely, gone. And the bitter realization sets in. A life was spent taking care of others while no one took care of the one who gave everything. But here is the cruelest part. When there is nothing left to give, many of those who once depended so much will simply disappear. Because in the end, it was never about love. It was about convenience. Life has a way of moving forward, whether a person is ready or not. Every day that passes is a day that cannot be reclaimed. For those who have spent most of their lives sacrificing for others, this realization often comes too late. Time and again, personal dreams and desires were set aside in favor of responsibilities, obligations, and the belief that there would always be time later. But the truth is, later never arrives. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that opportunities will always be there. The years slip by, filled with work, family commitments, and endless to-do lists. The things that once brought excitement and joy are pushed further and further down the priority list. Excuses pile up, waiting for retirement, waiting for the children to be independent, waiting for finances to improve, waiting for the right moment. The problem is that life rarely provides the perfect moment. There will always be something that seems more urgent. And then one day, reality hits. The energy that once existed is no longer the same. The enthusiasm that once burned bright has dimmed. The time that once seemed endless now feels alarmingly short. Looking back, it becomes clear that waiting was the biggest mistake of all. The dreams that were meant to be pursued never turned into reality. The experiences that were postponed remained just ideas. The opportunities that once seemed within reach faded away. This is not just about missed vacations or hobbies that were never explored. It goes much deeper than that. It is about living life as a spectator instead of an active participant. It is about realizing that the years were spent fulfilling expectations, meeting obligations, and making sure everyone else was taken care of, while personal happiness was always placed on hold. The regret that follows is not because of the things that were done, but because of the things that were never attempted. Society often teaches that putting others first is a sign of love and selflessness. While there is value in being responsible and supportive, there is also a fine line between helping others and losing oneself in the process. Many people dedicate their entire existence to making sure their family, friends, and colleagues are comfortable, happy, and secure. But in doing so, they slowly forget their own dreams. As time passes, a pattern emerges. The more a person puts themselves second, the more others do the same. When someone never stands firm about what they want, people stop considering their desires altogether. If every decision is made based on what is best for others, those around them begin to assume that this is simply the way things are supposed to be, and the longer this continues, the harder it becomes to break free. This is why so many people reach a certain age and feel an overwhelming sense of loss, not just for the time that has passed, but for the version of themselves that was left behind. They think about the places they wanted to see, the skills they wanted to learn, the changes they wanted to make. They wonder what life would have been like if they had taken risks, followed their passions, or simply prioritized their own happiness at least once in a while. The weight of this regret is far heavier than any temporary discomfort that would have come from making bold choices. But regret is not just about missed experiences. It is also about missed self-respect. Every time a person postpones their dreams, they send a silent message to themselves and to others that their desires are not important. That message is heard loud and clear. People who constantly put themselves second eventually find that they are treated as an afterthought. Others begin to assume that they are always available, always willing, always ready to make sacrifices. This is why waiting is so dangerous. It creates a cycle where personal happiness is always just out of reach. The longer someone waits, the more comfortable they become with waiting. The dream that once felt urgent starts to feel optional. The passion that once felt unstoppable starts to fade. The voice inside that once screamed for change becomes quieter and quieter until it is barely a whisper. But here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. There is still time. As long as there is breath in the lungs and strength in the body, there is time. Not for everything, some opportunities may have passed for good, but for something. And doing something is always better than doing nothing. The difference between a life filled with regret and a life lived with dignity is not luck, money, or age. It is a simple choice. It is the choice to stop waiting for permission, to stop believing that circumstances need to be perfect before action is taken, to stop assuming that dreams can always be pursued later, because later is never guaranteed. The only time that truly exists is now. This is not about making drastic, unrealistic changes overnight. It is not about chasing lost youth or pretending that time has not passed. It is about recognizing that even now, there is value in taking action. Even now, there are things to experience, learn, and enjoy. Even now, there is a chance to reclaim what was once lost. One of the greatest tragedies is meeting people who have lived long lives and listening to what they regret. They do not wish they had worked more hours or saved more money. They do not wish they had been more cautious or waited longer. They regret the things they never did, the chances they never took, the dreams they let slip away, the love they never expressed, the life they could have lived but never did. This is a lesson that should not be ignored. Fear of the unknown should never be stronger than the fear of wasting what little time is left. The world is full of people who convinced themselves it was too late, who settled into the comfort of believing that it didn't matter anymore. But those who break free from that mindset understand something powerful. Every single day is an opportunity. There is no such thing as the perfect moment. There is no magical day in the future when everything will align just right. The only moment that will ever matter is the one that is happening right now. Decisions made today will determine whether the future is filled with contentment or filled with regret. For those who continue to put off their dreams, there is another harsh truth that must be faced. Holding on to the past, whether through memories, old habits, or material things, only makes moving forward more difficult. Life is filled with unnecessary baggage, physical, emotional, and mental. closets overflowing with items that no longer serve a purpose, relationships that drain more than they give, routines that feel empty and repetitive. Letting go is one of the hardest things to do, yet it is often the only way to move forward. Keeping things that no longer serve a purpose does not bring comfort. It creates a prison. Every unnecessary object, every old regret, every outdated belief is an anchor, tying people to a past that no longer exists. The more one holds on, the heavier the burden becomes. Many people spend their lives chasing security, believing that the more they accumulate, the safer they will be. This idea is so deeply ingrained that it shapes decisions, priorities, and even self-worth. A house filled with possessions is seen as proof of a life well lived. The more things a person owns, the more successful they must be, or so they think. But the reality is far different. Accumulation does not equal security, and clutter does not equal meaning. Clinging to material things is nothing more than clinging to an illusion. Take a moment to think about it. What is the point of a closet overflowing with clothes that are never worn? Why hold on to furniture that only takes up space? Why keep reminders of people who brought nothing but pain? If your space holds on to the past, how can you make room for the future? Comment clear below if you're really ready to let go and create space for new energy. Now picture a different scene. Imagine the moment after everything is over, when life has run its course and there is nothing left but what remains behind. Family members left to sort through boxes of forgotten items, flipping through papers that had no real significance, deciding what to throw away and what to keep. The task becomes overwhelming. What was once a home is now a museum of meaningless objects, a collection of things that held more sentimental weight than practical use. Is that truly the legacy worth leaving behind? Because in the end, that's what excessive attachment to material possessions really is, a fear of moving forward. It is a refusal to acknowledge that everything in life has a cycle. Nothing stays the same. Everything changes. And yet, people hold on, convinced that their belongings offer comfort, when in reality, they are just another form of self-imposed prison. The only way to break free is to start clearing things out, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. Letting go of what no longer serves a purpose is an act of liberation. It is not about throwing things away for the sake of it. It is about asking the hard questions with brutal honesty. Does this truly serve me? Does it bring me peace, or does it take up space? Do I keep it because I love it, or because I am afraid to let it go? The answers to those questions determine whether life is lived with lightness or burdened by unnecessary weight. But material possessions are only one part of the equation. There is something far heavier, something far more damaging than clutter. The burden of holding on to people who do not respect you. Letting go of things is one thing. Letting go of toxic relationships is another. And yet, it is just as necessary, if not more. Because what good is a clean home if the soul remains suffocated by people who drain it? This is a truth that is hard to face, but it must be addressed. Too many people spend their lives tolerating disrespect simply because they are afraid of being alone. They endure mistreatment, turn a blind eye to cruel words, and make excuses for those who continuously show them they are not valued. But at a certain point in life, this excuse no longer holds up. By now, the lessons should have been learned. Respect is not something to be begged for. Someone who disrespects once will do it again. Those who belittle and dismiss will not suddenly change, no matter how much time is given, no matter how many explanations are offered, and no matter how much effort is put into proving worth. And yet, there are those who continue to justify the unjustifiable. They accept humiliation. They endure coldness from ungrateful children. They tolerate hurtful words from siblings who only call when they need something. They maintain friendships with people who only reach out when they want a favor. And why? Because deep down, they believe that something, no matter how painful, is better than nothing. But this is a lie. True loneliness is not the absence of people. It is being surrounded by people who do not value you. It is worse than solitude. It is an existence where a person is treated like an afterthought, like background noise, like an old piece of furniture sitting in the corner of someone else's life. And the worst part, the only person responsible for allowing it to continue is the one who refuses to walk away. This is where a decision must be made. Fear cannot be the ruling force in life any longer. The fear of loneliness cannot be stronger than self-respect. If someone does not treat you with basic decency, they do not deserve a place in your life, period. It does not matter who they are. It does not matter how long they have been around. It does not matter how much it hurts to cut ties. Because what truly destroys a person is not the act of leaving. It is the act of staying when they know they should go. If this message resonates, it is because deep down, the truth has already been recognized. Every day spent holding on to what does not serve is a day wasted. Every second spent justifying bad treatment is a second that could be spent building something better. The weight of everything tolerated, the things given without return, the disrespect endured, the choices postponed, has been felt long enough. And yet, just as the realization starts to take shape, another obstacle appears: the resistance to change. This is the final hurdle. It is the last chain keeping everything in place. It is the voice in the back of the mind whispering that it is easier to stay the same, to keep the peace, to avoid discomfort. It is the familiar set of rules that have governed life for so long, the ones that were followed without question. But whose rules are they? For years, expectations dictated how life should be lived, what was right, what was responsible, what was expected. Sacrifices were made, standards were met, and obligations were fulfilled. But at what cost? Was there ever room left for happiness, for peace, for freedom? You were raised to put others first, to believe that sacrifice equaled goodness, to obey without question. And so, for decades, you did exactly that, following rules as if they were absolute, as if your own desires didn't matter. But let's be honest, has that life of quiet obedience made you happy? Or has it only kept you trapped in a version of life that feels more like an obligation than a choice? This is where most people hesitate. Just when they begin to see the truth, the excuses flood in. But it's always been this way. I can't change at my age. It's too late to do things differently. And just like that, they lock themselves even deeper into a prison of their own making. Because let's be real, change is terrifying. It requires stepping into the unknown, breaking away from what's familiar, even if that familiarity is suffocating. But clinging to outdated rules just because they've always been there, that's not wisdom, that's fear. Maybe those rules served a purpose once, at a different stage in life. But if they now only hold you back, weigh you down, or make you feel stuck, then those are rules you need to break. Who decided that making new friends after 60 is impossible? Who said that your life should revolve around everyone but yourself? Who made up the idea that you no longer have the right to enjoy, to choose, to change direction? These are limits imposed by a society that prefers you to grow old quietly, useful to others, but never fully alive for yourself. And if you keep following these rules without questioning them, all you're doing is giving up whatever time you have left. Because here's the truth. No one is going to give you permission to be free. No one is going to tell you, okay, now you're allowed to live for yourself. Either you decide to do it, or you stay trapped until the very end. And the end comes faster than you think. Breaking free from outdated rules is an act of necessary rebellion. But even if you do that, there's one dangerous mindset that can ruin everything. The idea that you need to wait for the perfect moment to be happy. People always tell themselves they'll change soon. They swear this time will be different. They start setting boundaries, saying no, letting go of what weighs them down. For a moment, they feel free, but then life keeps moving and fear creeps back in. Suddenly, they hesitate, they retreat, they convince themselves they'll do it later. And just like that, they slip right back into waiting for the perfect time to finally start living. Let me tell you something, that moment does not exist. It never has. There will never be a day when everything magically falls into place, when all your fears vanish, when the conditions are ideal for you to finally claim your happiness. If you keep waiting for life to make room for you, you'll die waiting. Because life doesn't adjust to you. You have to move, take action, claim what you want without hesitation, without asking for permission. Want to travel? Buy the ticket. Need to cut ties with someone toxic? Make the call now. Want to start something new? Start today. Happiness isn't something that randomly happens to you. It's something you take with both hands if you have to. If you don't do it now, then be honest with yourself. It's not that you can't. It's that you're not willing to pay the price of being free. And the difference between those who die at peace and those who leave full of regret isn't luck. It isn't money. It isn't whether life was fair to them. It's one thing: who dared and who waited. So tell me, which one do you want to be?